James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Also, happy Valentine's Day. If you're just joining us and you forgot, that's your last warning, fellas. Do not screw this up. You have one chance. And look, if you have a bad weekend because you forgot, I tried. I tried to tell you. Now, if you go out and you get a bad gift, that's not on me either. All I can do is remind you that a gift needs to be got, and don't get anything dumb. Don't get like a vacuum or footy pajamas. Don't get yourself in trouble, guys. All right, my next guest, coming back to the James Show, Parag Amin. Now, she's an attorney, and we ask her legal questions, but I noticed on your website, Law PLA, so Parag L. Amin. What is the L?
It's my middle name, Latish, and I go by Key.
You go. What do you go by?
Key.
Key.
But, no. So the middle initial is L for Latish, and I was just clarifying. You said she goes by. I just wanted to clarify, James.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking at a picture of a woman when I said that.
Yeah, no worries.
All
Definitely
right.
Not my picture, but all good. Good to.
Well,
good
I don't
to
know.
Talk to you again.
She's next to this guy on your website in the glasses. Is that you in the on the front page?
Probably yes. So that may be just one of my assistants or something on the homepage.
Okay. Well, let's talk about what's going on. Trump administration. We have federal workers claiming it's illegal to fire them. Can that even be true? Can it be illegal to fire a federal worker?
So it's a more complicated question and answer than one would expect, James. So interestingly enough, when it comes to public employees, they tend to have vested interests and rights more so than an employee would have with a private employer. So it's very possible, whether from collective bargaining or other rights that federal and even state government employees enjoy, can implicate certain property rights that, again, people like you or I or other citizens working in private companies wouldn't necessarily have.
See, that seems like an unfair playing field. How come they're not subject to the same whims that we are?
They should be, frankly, but unfortunately, it's just sometimes it's different rules for government employees than it is for just normal citizens. Like for example, one big thing that gets criticized is like in Congress, insider trading is not really illegal in Congress, and that there's a big controversy about how and why Congress people get so incredibly wealthy, amassing tens of millions or sometimes even hundreds of millions of dollars in net wealth because of these trading rules where Congress can actually freely trade on information they know is going to be passed into law or certain restrictions that are going to get passed, whereas the rest of us would find ourselves in a lot of trouble for doing exactly that.
Well, that seems unethical, and I can see why people would think that. And I mean, I kind of do, only because they have a different set of rules that they're playing by. I'm just not a big fan of insider trading laws to begin with, because when I read up on them, I get the purpose behind them, but there's only like 6 charges of that a year or something ridiculously low, because it just seems like a really unenforceable law.
I mean, certainly it is challenging, in terms of being able to enforce it, and it does take a lot of time and resources to be able to enforce it. But, frankly, I think that it should be universal, whether it's public or private, whether it's employees or Congress people. I mean, it should be the same rules for all of us. And unfortunately, there is a tiered system, and federal employees do get the benefit of those things.
Well, I think we should go in the other direction, though, that instead of restricting their abilities to trade stocks, we should just open up what trades they're making. And then we could just have like the Nancy Pelosi ETF, where I have an exchange traded fund that matches the trades of like the top 5 members of Congress, or, maybe just the committee chairs in Congress or something like that. And we could all profit off of it together, Parag.
Listen, James, I love it. It's smart. And, I have heard of something very similar to that there are like either portfolios or websites that actually track what Congress people are trading to allow you to do exactly that, because they do have superior information
Yeah.
than the rest of us have.
Yeah, and I looked into those, and so they have to wait on the public filings to come out, so they're always lagging 2-3 months behind what's going on. I would like for it to be instantaneous and see what happens then, but I don't get to make the rules. The other one thing I wanted to ask you about, Parag, is we have, what is it, 19 attorneys general that are suing Doge over letting them have access to these databases. What is that all about? Explain that one to me.
Sure. So, Doge obviously is a very new creation. I mean, not even just as a name and an entity, but even really as an idea, where you have private citizens who have brought in, just completely appointed by the president, not confirmed by any part of Congress. And ultimately, they're getting access to very secretive and private information for essentially every citizen in the United States of America. And so there's a big controversy about their right and their ability to be able to access that information, and in terms of what they might be able to do with that information.
Do you think they have a leg to stand on?
In terms of the lawsuits, it is an interesting one in terms of how much access Doge has and how they're being restricted in their use of that information. So, look, I mean, as it relates to private companies being contracted with the government or having access to sensitive information, that is certainly nothing that's new. But the way in which these companies have been approved to look into private citizens, I think that there is some argument to be made that it is an improper and broad reach of accessing private people's information or private citizens' information by the government. But ultimately, I think that Doge is going to win out on this, because, look, the executive branch, which also obviously includes at the head the presidency, and the more recent rulings by the United States Supreme Court indicating kind of broad latitude for the president in making certain decisions and executing the powers of the presidency, I think they're all going to weigh heavily in favor of Doge and the president and his appointing of these individual and private citizens, including Elon Musk, for Doge.
All right. Thank you very much, Attorney Parag Amin. You can find his website, lawpla.com. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, James.
All right. Coming up next, a couple things on the board here. We have another school here in DFW in a sex scandal, but this one isn't just one guy harassing one student. There's like a half dozen faculty in trouble, and it's not all teachers. And then coming up next, I had some responses on both Valentine's gifts and things people like to cut via Doge. So more feedback's coming on the James Show. You can get yours in too. Email me, james@wbap.com, or send me a Facebook message, or call 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. You know, when I ask for your feedback, if you send me a note on Facebook or email on james@wbap.com, I don't always reply to them, but I do read every single one of them. It takes me just like a second to read. So when I'm flipping through a bunch of them real quick on the break, I don't go back and answer all of them. But rest assured, I do read all of them. And one of the reasons I do it is because I like seeing what y'all think of that I missed. And so when I was talking about Doge, and I was kind of fantasizing, like, what if we had a Doge in Texas? What if we had Doge go through, the books here in DFW at your local city hall? What would you like to see cut? Well, this was a good one. Stacy said she would cut all funding for standardized testing, like the STAR testing. It was Teams test when I was real young. By the time I graduated, I think it was the TOS test. And now my kids are taking the STAR test. And they also have to take like a MAPS test, but it's not about MAPS. I don't even know what's going on these days. But she says, need to cut funding for standardized testing like STAR testing. Students are taught to the test and not to think. Now, I love this discussion too, because I'm not even sure if we've talked about this on the James Show before. I've done radio for like 22 years now. And a lot of it was in Dallas, but I've only been on WBAP for about a year, so I'm not sure if I've talked about this on this iteration. But I feel both ways about that. Number one, the problem about having the standardized testing and making it so important and tying money to it is, yes, you now have the incentive put on the school districts to teach only to the test. But what if it's a really good test? I mean, what if it's a test that determines whether or not they know how to do math or they know how to read properly or whatever? So I don't think it's necessarily bad to teach to the test. I'm not sure it helps because I also think about, well, what would happen in the absence of standardized testing? Like, how would you grade whether or not the schools are doing good? Well, there's other ways you can grade them. You could look at like their graduating seniors. What's their average ACT test? What's their average SAT test? Well, we already have the private sector function being handled by the SAT and ACT. There's already a mechanism by which people are evaluated on how much education and how well it sunk in when they come out of high school. We already have it. I feel like the standardized testing is a duplicate system, and it's obviously an inferior one. Because anytime you put up a government program next to its private sector alternative, you're almost always going to like the private sector alternative better. But see, she made me think. She said she's just a homeschool mom, so she can't call in. But yeah, well, Stacy, homeschool mom, made me think of something that I'm adding to the list. That's right. Let's get rid of a lot of these standardized testings. And that's something that we need to have like a little push pin in the back of our mind on these school choice debates. Well, we can have vouchers go to private schools, but they have to be held to the same standards. Well, then that kind of defeats the purpose, right? If you can go to a private school that only matches the methodologies and the curriculum of the already failing public schools, what is this? Just public schools with fresher paint? All good points. All good points. Love it. Thank you very much. A couple other things to bring up. I would like to cut some of these ads, these websites that you hear in public service announcements, like discovertheforest.org. Please, God, tell me there's not one penny of tax money going to discovertheforest.org. Have you heard these PSAs? Encouraging kids to go play in the forest. Now, they've gone back. They've been doing this for like decades. And when I was growing up, we had a forest in our backyard. And I'm like, you don't have to tell me to go play in the forest. I'll go play in the forest when I want to. And now that I live in a big city, I have to think, what do all these city kids do? They hear Discover the Forest. What are they supposed to do? Just drive out like somewhere between Terrell and Canton, pull over on the side of the road and start walking around in the trees? I don't know. Just none of that makes sense. I'd like to get rid of that too. I don't really have time to get into this now. Maybe I'll bring it up after our next guest. But this new sex scandal from Newman Academy in Arlington, this is weird because there's so many people involved now. Have you been keeping up with this? I haven't mentioned it on the show before because when it started out, it was like, oh, there's a teacher in trouble, or oh, it's like a basketball coach who's in trouble. And then there was like a principal that's been kicked out of his office, charged with professional failure to make a required child abuse report. And, You start adding up all these other people. There's some tampering with witness action going on, or allegedly, reportedly, whatever. And now there's like 3 more school employees that are on paid administrative leave while the investigation continues. The head varsity girls coach, basketball coach, an assistant football coach. There's a lot going on here. This one's getting really big. Anyway, if I have some time after my next guest, maybe we can go into that a little bit more. But coming up next, we'll talk to David Hamilton from America's Future Series and look at the progress made on the foreign policy front. Looks like Russia is in significant peace talks. Gaza's releasing hostages. Are things really clearing up overseas that quick? Find out next on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, progress is being made in Doge. They're just going line by line through the budget, through the agencies, cutting people, firing people, ending programs. They got a website where they're putting it all up. But look, there's some other things that are going on the foreign policy front. We're seeing a little bit of movement. You know, Gaza's seems to be a little more enthusiastic about releasing hostages, even though they're kind of shaky about the actual follow through. Russia's actually having positive talks about ending their little skirmish with Ukraine. David Hamilton's on from America's Future series. Things are looking pretty good on the foreign policy front, and he hasn't really actually done much.
Yeah, great to be with you. I'm very encouraged by the conversations we're having with Russia and Ukraine about ending this war. You know, the supposed experts have been saying for some time that the only possible outcome is the complete and total destruction of Russia. There's never been any willingness to have any kind of negotiated withdrawal. And I've been on your show and others saying that from the very beginning that we have to figure out some way to end this war. It's funny, the guy that they consider to be completely unqualified to have these conversations, Pete Hegseth, is saying what many have said for some time, that China is our real enemy, and we have to figure out a way to end this war and the destruction of Ukraine so that we can ultimately pivot and concentrate on our real existential threat, which is China.
So what are all the headlines I'm seeing about J.D. Vance goes over to Europe and tells them off and gives them the scolding about censorship and migration? What was the quote out of that? I didn't even know he left town. Well, give me the summary on what happened with him.
Well, I have no problem with anyone speaking forcefully around the idea of free speech. Now, we have the First Amendment, and not every country has that, and not every country believes or has it in their constitution that speech is a right. But they say it is. It's just not, codified in their constitution. We believe in that, and we have seen a lot of censorship. As a matter of fact, you may have seen that the English at one point were trying to prosecute people in America who said things on American social media that they disagreed with and called it misinformation, and wanted American citizens arrested. So, someone needs to stand up to that sort of totalitarian dictatorship and fascist rule, and I'm glad to see that JD did that.
So what's going on with our neighbors, Canada and Mexico? Do Canada first.
So Canada, is ultimately, one of our strongest allies and friends. We have great relationships with their people. I think we'd all agree that their leadership went astray for a number of years. The things that Trudeau did to the truckers and others were a bit barbaric and authoritarian. And their unwillingness to help us with this huge problem of people coming across and bringing illicit drugs and terrorists, et cetera, was really unconscionable. It's taken pressure to get them to understand that we're serious about that. And the people of Canada have no problem with it. They don't want undesirables in their country. They value immigration. We value immigration. But I think people are finally to a point in Canada and the United States where they're saying, just because you're against illegal immigration, terrorists, drugs, fentanyl, cartels, et cetera, doesn't mean that you're anti-immigration or anti-immigrant.
What's with the progress on Mexico? Did they actually send those troops to the border? I mean, I saw crossings were down. Are things generally looking up down there too?
Yeah, I think it would be helpful to have them. I don't think it's necessary. We have really done a great job in a very short period of time of actually truly securing the border. We will always have to worry about our ports of entry. A sizable portion of the illegals come through the airports and through our seaports, and they overstay visas, et cetera. And as we've said on your show before, the focus needs to be on national security threats, terrorists, cartel members, violent gang members, et cetera. And that's where they're focusing. We'll see here in about 6 months to maybe a year if the administration goes forward with trying to, mass deportations of people that are here illegally. But they have about 1.4 million people that the Biden administration identified as being deserving of deportation that will keep them busy for some time.
So whatever happened with the Panama Canal situation, does China, did they back off of that? Is that all resolved? Where are we with that one?
There's a little saber rattling on that, but I think it's important that China needs to understand that Panama is of vital interest to us and the rest of the free world. Their influence peddling, their sort of Silk Road diplomacy, basically they're loan sharks. They give people money, they get them in trouble, they and they foreclose on them. They're knee breakers, right? We can't let that happen to the Panama Canal. And Panama needs to understand who its friend is, and that is America. There is an alternative. One could actually dig another canal. It would cost billions, et cetera. But
I guess that's on
Panama,
the table.
If you don't want to play nice, and you talk about choking off trade for us and partnering with China, then maybe there needs to be another competitor on the block.
Well, that's interesting. I hadn't heard anyone say that. All right, when are you guys doing some live events and then starting back up America's Future Series next month?
Yes, sir. March 7th, we're down at Austin, helping keep it weird, but we're focused on defense innovation. It's our dual-use technology summit. Joe Lonsdale of Palantir VC AI leader is being honored. We're honoring General Murray, who stood up the Army Futures Command in the evening. Secretary Lord is helping us with that. But we're at Austin Community College on the Rio Grande campus with our one-day dual-use tech summit and our VIP reception. And we have more events following up.
All right. David Hamilton, America's Future Series. Appreciate your expertise, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that's nice to have a guy you can just say, what's going on with Canada? What's going on with Panama? What's going on with Mexico? What's going on with Russia? That's what David Hamilton's job is on The James Show. Not a bad job if you can get it. All right. Stick around. Coming up on The James Show, I have to make a correction. I got something very wrong at the beginning of the week. I was corrected by a nice listener. I did some follow-up research, and I'll tell you how I was so wrong on, I think it was Monday's show. Coming up next, I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. You know, I remember the first time I heard the urban legend that Brooks and Dunn didn't get along. I remember the first guy who told me the story because I was so disappointed. I was on a show that was on Sirius XM satellite radio, and I believe it was 2007 or so, and I was so disappointed because if you're not familiar with the urban legend, or now it's an urban myth, they don't get along, is the myth. Brooks and Dunn, the most successful country music duo. It may be just the most successful duo of all time. Don't give me that Simon and Garfunkel, Captain and Tennille. Don't at me on that. Brooks and Dunn, whether you like country music or not, bro, they've had 20 number one hits. 20 number one hits. Good Lord, you would be lucky. Anyone would be lucky out of their mind to have one. So to find out that these two guys who their songs sound happy, they sure do compliment each other on stage and artistically, to find out that they weren't friends kind of bummed me out. Well, I had mentioned it on the show. Let me play that for you a couple days ago before I got a nice correction here. This was me getting it wrong. An email with the tickets to go see Brooks and Dunn. You know, I heard a rumor about those guys, and I've read it in more than one place, so I'm starting to think it's true. I heard they hate each other. Like, they have to travel on separate tour buses. They don't talk. They're not friends. And I don't know what the backstory is. Someone slept with someone's wife, or there's probably a girl involved, or money or something. But I read that the only time they talk these days is when they're literally on stage. And other than that, they can't stand each other. And I just thought, what a private nightmare that must be for those guys. You have your biggest arch enemy in the world, and it's what you're known for. Because Brooks can't go have a solo career. Dunn can't go have a solo career. They both tried. They have to come back and they have to tour together. And then they pack arenas. Then they make millions of dollars and all you have to do is go on tour and perform every night with the guy that you hate the most. I don't know if that's a good life. I don't know if I'd trade places with that guy or either one of them. All right, so now I'm back live. That was me embarrassing myself on I think that was Monday's show. So, big fat correction. Brooks and Dunn do not hate each other. Brooks and Dunn are friends. Now, isn't that so much better? However, one of the reasons I'm kind of excited about giving the correction for you is I need you to see me doing corrections, because I quite often gripe about how the media gets things wrong and never does corrections. I do. When I get something this wrong that's this verifiably just wrong as wrong can be, not only do I not have a problem with issuing a correction, you know, like if I was a narcissist, I wouldn't be able to do this, like a clinical narcissist. They are incapable of self-criticism. Well, let's see. Look, here's proof. I'm not a sociopath. I'm not a narcissist. I'm not a psychopath. But also just makes me feel better because I kind of wanted them to be friends. I don't know why. It doesn't mean anything to my life, but that makes it so much better, just knowing that they actually get along. And then because I goofed up and I got a nice correction from a listener, I ended up having to double check what she said. And so in my research on Brooks and Dunn, I found out that it was just a few months ago. What was it, back in October? They were on Theo Von's podcast. You know Theo Von? He's that comedian with the mullet. He looks like if a vape pen were a person. He has a podcast called This Past Weekend. Ronnie Dunn and Kix Brooks were on it, and he actually asked them about the old urban myth that they hate each other, and they don't. But they did say that everyone in country music hates each other. In fact, the quote is, as friendly as they say the world of country music is, it's so darn competitive. Everyone hates one another. They act like they don't on TV. Boom. That makes sense. You know, there's a lot of people in any industry that hate each other that wouldn't dare say it. But real estate agents, for every house that other real estate agent sells, that's another house that you don't. If you're a country music star, every time someone else gets a number one hit, it is supplanting one of your song's full potential. There's only 10 people that can be in the top 10. There's only 40 people that can be in the top 40. So if there's 41 bands someone has a strong incentive, not just financially, but personally, to be envious. You know, a lot of people assume that everyone at a radio station, oh, you're all on WBAP. I guess you're all friends. Well, I mean, we are, but that's not the norm of all radio stations. You know, for some of the radio stations I've been at, I walk in, hey, here's your new morning show, and I get to meet the rest of the crew, and I just meet 4 other people who wish they had gotten promoted to the morning show, and they smile at you, and they shake your hand, and they're nice to you, but part of them hates you because they wanted that job. They wanted that seat. They wanted that promotion. They wanted your salary. I mean, it was even like more delineated than that. Even on this job, I don't know. Maybe someone else wanted this shift. Maybe there's someone in the building who was thinking that, well, this is going to be their promotion, and I ended up taking away what they thought was their golden opportunity, something they'd been working for 10 years, something they'd been working for 15 years, something that was their ultimate life's goal, and then I just come waltzing in and screw it up. That could apply to anybody on this floor in this building. Yeah, competition is real. And it's not just country music stars. It's not just radio hosts. You know, it's everything. It's mechanics. It's real estate agents. It's financial advisors. It's probably CPA firms. If you have a delivery system, if you have a restaurant and the restaurant across from you has a full parking lot and you don't, that's got to suck. So yes, Brooks and Dunn are friends with each other. But they say everyone else in country music, you just have to assume they very well may hate you. And I thought that was a good little life lesson. All these people smiling that you're competing against, if they're nice to you in public, just remember, they may not like you behind closed doors. Yikes. That's a little scary. Alabama Shakes is coming to the Pavilion at Toyota Music Factory September 27th with special guest the Greyhounds. It's one of the contests we have going on here at WBAP. You can win some tickets off of us. Text the word Shakes to the same number you used to call in the show. Shakes to 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Coming up next, Doge updates on the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Yay, let's go. Also, gentlemen, reminder, Valentine's Day. That's today. That's today. Come on, don't forget. You're going to ruin your weekend. You're going to ruin a lot more in your weekend. If you get this wrong today, you're going to be in a booth at a diner in 16 years, and you're going to tick her off, and she's going to bring it up. That's what it's not about today. It's about the rest of your life, gentlemen. They're keeping score. If you get it right, it'll never come up again. If you get it wrong, it will haunt you for the rest of your life. Do not screw up Valentine's Day. I'll give you one more reminder for the end of the show, because I'm also going to give you the history of Valentine's Day. You think this is all just a sweet lovey-dovey holiday. Yeah, well, what's the story behind St. Valentine's? Is it another guy that ticked off the Romans and got his head lopped off? I don't know, maybe. You'll have to stick around for the history. Right now, though, my guest is Chris Furlow from the Texas Bankers Association. Welcome to the James Show, Chris.
Hey, James. And, hey, chocolates are not enough, right?
Well, yeah, if she tells you chocolates are enough, that means chocolates are not enough. That's like your warning sign. I imagine maybe there's some girl out there that's okay for, but if you make that assumption, you're on your own, pal. All right, hey, from the point of view of the bankers, how do they like what's been going on in D.C. the last 3 weeks?
Well, it's certainly been a change of events for the better, particularly when you look at an agency like the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. That has been one of the prime examples of a weaponized agency targeting businesses and certainly banks that Senator Elizabeth Warren and her ideological allies, frankly, just don't like. CF has been truly her tool. That it has been her little pet agency, I think, is what the president had referred to it as last week. And what she's done is basically use that to go after certainly even community banks that are really supplying capital to small businesses. And there are just tons of examples of how the CFPB has exceeded its authorities, abused its power, and ignored the law. And, for me, it's the hypocrisy of it all. So CFPB, for example, had accused.
Hang on. Before you get into the real world examples here, I want you to imagine the person listening to us right now. This is the first time they heard of the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau.
Sure.
It's only been around for not even 10 years, maybe. Explain what it is and how it affects you bankers.
Yeah, you bet. So the CFPB was founded, and it was really the brainchild of Senator Elizabeth Warren after the financial crisis, or after 2008. And it was a classic government overreaction by setting up this agency that was supposed to essentially be a monitor, not only on banks, but other types of businesses. And, it sounds great. It sounds like, hey, this is consumer protection. But what it turned into was really an unaccountable agency. And the reason it's unaccountable is because it is the only agency in the federal government, check this out, that is off appropriations. What does that mean? It means that Congress can't hold it accountable. And that's why this has become an agency that the Trump administration is targeting for either elimination or reform. And so some of those examples of the hypocrisy, right? They go after businesses and banks and accuse them of discrimination, but in 2023, they settled a $6 million discrimination lawsuit with their own employees. They pushed out this rule for data privacy, but they also exposed 250 million Americans' data. And probably the one big thing that we have focused on from the banking industry standpoint is that they classically overreach. So part of the Dodd-Frank legislation after the crisis was that there was this thing called Section 1071. It's a small business data collection rule. It was 3 pages of legislation, James. They turned it into 888 pages of regulation. And while Congress said collect 13 data points, CFPB turned it into 81, and that includes asking about LGBTQ status and all kinds of other highly personal information for small businesses. So this is what CFPB turned into. It was weaponized government.
Right, and it seems to be like all the political activists somehow got themselves in a pantsuit and act like this is legitimate business or oversight or regulation, when really it's the same grievance extortion racket that they were doing from the outside of government.
Hey, let's look at this, right? So Senator Elizabeth Warren and her allies were in front of CFPB last week. They're protesting everything that they see going on, but they enabled the CFPB under the guise of consumer protection to do these things. It's essentially this thing where they don't want to be held accountable now that the shoe, in essence, is on the other foot. Senator Warren is screaming the loudest because she designed CFPB to be unaccountable. And then later on, now that the shoe is flipped, she's going after, for example, Elon Musk. So think about this. Her allies are no longer in charge. So they're saying politics. They're saying, hey, the unelected is now impacting our government. Well, they didn't have any problem when George Soros was impacting the government.
Well, no one in the CFPB is elected either.
Well, you know, it's funny. Last week, Senator Warren, and I'm not kidding here. You can find the video. Senator Warren said, no Republican, no Democrat, no independent voted for Elon Musk. And then she said, damn, not one vegetarian voted for Elon Musk. And what you said is absolutely true. Well, no vegetarians voted for Biden CFPB Director Rohit Chopra either. Yet she had no beef with that.
Love
Pun
it.
intended, by the way.
Okay, I see what you did there. So let's talk about another thing she said. She says the CFPB has returned $2.1 billion back to the consumers from banks who were cheating them. Where did she get that number, and what really happened? Because I didn't get a check.
Well, you know, who knows where Elizabeth Warren got her data, but I will tell you that number is it's a small number compared to what they've done to businesses in the United States. So talking about this 1071 rule I was talking about, the small business data collection. So this was something that, again, they're supposed to be protecting small businesses. Well, when they pushed this out, the Biden administration's own small business administration commented saying, look, this is going to make it harder for banks to lend to small businesses. And state banking regulators said the same thing. But the CFPB ignored that critical input. And so what that does is that hampers the ability of banks, especially community banks, to support small businesses. Think how many businesses essentially were blocked from growth because of this highly regulatory environment that CFPB created.
Yeah, I've always felt like this is the tallest wedding cake in the world, to where when we had like that financial crisis about 100 years ago, well, let's make the Federal Trade Commission. And then when we had the Great Depression, they're like, let's make the Security and Exchange Commission. And then they keep adding on top of it. You know, for the one in the 90s, we made Sarbanes-Oxley. And for the 2009 crash, we made Dodd-Frank. And they just keep piling on and on and on, and not realizing, hey, you know, these other agencies that were specifically meant to prevent financial failures, they didn't work. Why do we keep adding more to the pile? And so I just want to see these layers taken off is sort of my dream.
Classic overreaction. It's classic overreaction. But here's the thing that's different about CFPB. Again, this is how they operate off appropriations. Unlike every other federal agency and those you just talked about, is they would simply send a message over to the Federal Reserve and ask for X amount of dollars, and they'd get it. There's no accountability to that. And so this is why what the president has done, now the new OMB director, Russ Vought, is in charge. And he actually sent a letter to Jerome Powell, chair of the Federal Reserve, and said, we want no money for the third quarter. He basically shut that down. And so, you know, this is the type of action that will help bring this unaccountable agency to account.
Okay, Chris Farlow.
So we're excited about the new leadership.
Texas Banker Association, we're out of time. I got to run. Where do they find your work outside of WBAP?
You can find it at texasbankers.com.
There you go. Thank you very much, Chris Farlow. I hope the CFPB goes away, they salt the ground, and never comes back again. Coming up next, the true, terrible, awful, depressing history of Valentine's Day. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Happy Valentine's Day. Did you get your gift yet? Are you going to get it on the way home? You bum. That's all right, as long as you don't forget, or you'll be hearing about it for the rest of your life. Do you know the history of Valentine's Day? If you've been listening to this show long enough, like when I do this, my wife already knows. Oh, my God, how bad is it? Oh, so what makes you think it's bad? Well, you wouldn't be smiling like that, Parker, if it wasn't some terrible story. Fine. It is a terrible story. I'll tell you about it in just a little bit, though. Listen, in the next segment, we have to play Name That Artist, because I have been charged with the task of giving away tickets to the I Want My 80s tour. Rick Springfield's coming to Music Hall at Fair Park. John Waite, Wang Chung, Paul Young. It'll be July 20th. You can get tickets information at livenation.com. But if you want to try and win them in the next segment, we're going to play this montage of 10 songs, and you have to name the artist. Now, first, we're going to play the montage now. And if you can go through all of these songs and think, oh, yeah, I know all these bands, then go ahead and call in. And then when we play the montage again, you're going to write them all down. So when I go to you for the actual contest, you can just spit out the answer really quick and smooth and make great radio, right? All right, so here's the montage for today's Name That Artist. Oh, my God. I'm going to cry over here, Bruce. Jesus. What is this? The sad edition? The tear jerks? Bruce, did someone just break up with you? Bruce is the one who makes the montages. Did your girlfriend just send you the goodbye text this morning while you were making it and it just steered you off? I mean, what's Celine Dion doing in my montage anyway? All right, so I will diss Celine Dion. I'm allowed to not like Celine Dion. I'm allowed. You don't have to agree with me. There's just going to be some bands that I like that you don't. All right, let's talk about the history of Valentine's. By the way, if you want to win those tickets, I love the 80s, call in right now, 800-288-9227. We can go ahead and load up the phones for Name That Artist, 800-288-9227. Lupercalia, you ever heard of that? No, you haven't heard of that. But way back in Roman times, it was a holiday that happened at this time, usually February 13th through 15th, and it was all about fertility. Oh, I see what you're getting at, because this is Valentine's Day. I guess you're talking about the holiday that the Christians sort of took over and imposed Valentine's Day on. Sure, yeah, kind of. It was already a big deal. Lupercalia, except it was a little different. They didn't give each other hearts and chocolates and roses. They would actually sacrifice a small animal, some livestock, and then they would take their knife and they would cut strips out of the skin and they would rip the skin off, and then they would beat women with it and get them all bloody and kind of hurt too. It was not an enjoyable experience. They kind of did it against their will, but this is for fertility. And so you mix that with the actual saint. That's the holiday we co-opted from the Romans and put it on the calendar. But then the actual story behind, well, then who's this Saint Valentine guy himself? Well, his story's a little bit better. I mean, it doesn't end great, but at least you're not mutilating an animal and beating pretty girls with the carcass. Here, this is from the History Channel, just a quick summary.
In the 5th century, perhaps in an effort to Christianize the pagan festival, Pope Gelasius declared February 14th as St. Valentine's Day. As for the real St. Valentine, there were reportedly several canonized by the Church. Legend has it that one St. Valentine, a defiant Roman priest, lived during the 3rd century AD under Emperor Claudius II. Claudius was an ambitious ruler. His battles required vast armies of men to abandon their young families for long periods of time, resulting in a military that was half-hearted and homesick. So determined was Claudius to stop love from sapping the will of his armies, he banned marriages altogether. Father Valentine thought the ban unjust and defied the emperor, continuing to marry young lovers in secret. The emperor eventually caught on to the priest's actions, arrested him, and sentenced him to death. It is believed that young couples he had secretly wed would visit his cell, passing him flowers and notes through the bars as symbols of their gratitude. The story continues that the condemned Father Valentine fell in love with his jailer's daughter. On February 14th, the day he was executed, it is said he passed the young girl a note. It was signed, "From your Valentine." A tradition was born.
Yeah, and then they drug him out in front of the Circus public plaza and chopped his head off. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. We'll play Name That Artist next on The James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP now on FM at 93.3. You want to play Name That Artist? Fine, we'll play Name That Artist. We're playing for 2 tickets to see I Want My 80s tour. It features Rick Springfield, John Waite, Wang Chung, and Paul Young. It's going to be at the Music Hall at Fair Park, July 20th. For the rest of us, we can get tickets and info at livenation.com. But someone's going to win some here on Name That Artist. Who do we start with? Barbara in Grand Prairie, welcome to Name That Artist. You ready?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Now, did you actually write down all the artists yet?
No, I haven't heard any of them.
Okay, that's why I talked to you first. Go ahead. We're going to play the montage. Now, Barbara, real quick, get out a piece of paper or maybe on your phone. You can open a notepad file or something. We're going to play the artist again real quick. Will they be able to hear them on hold? You sure? Okay. Yeah, I'll put you back on hold. Go get a piece of paper or a notepad file on your phone. Write down the 10 artists, and you other people on hold, in case Barbara gets one wrong, David, Keith, looking at you, you write them down too, so I can go straight to you. All right, here's the 10 songs for tickets to the I Want My 80s tour on Name That Artist. All right, someone broke up with Bruce, I guess. Barbara, Grand Prairie, did you get all that?
God. Not really, but I'll try.
All right, well, you're going to go first either way. You ready? Let's hear your list.
Yeah.
Go.
Okay. I don't know. Chicago.
What?
George
Hang
Michael.
on. You're just giving away the store. I don't know. Well, that's not going to cut it. Keith in Plano, do you have a list?
Yeah.
All right, let's hear it.
All right. Hang on here. I'll look at it. Okay. Celine Dion, Chicago, Wham.
Yeah, I wouldn't have got that one either.
No, I can't see my Rhea Esteban, Miami Sound Machine, Climax, Andy Gibb, Fred, Dan Fogelberg, Anne Murray, Boz Scaggs.
All right, so you missed 2 on that one. Keith, so far you're the winner. Let me just see if Dave can do better. There's one more guy here that Dave, do you have the full list? Can you beat Keith's list? All right, let's hear it.
I can beat it.
Go.
So you got Celine Dion, Chicago, George Michael, Climax, and the other band Climax, which is spelled different.
Mm-hmm.
Andy Gibbs, Brad, Dan Fogelberg, Rita Coolidge, and the big Boz Scaggs.
Dang, you did win it. Well, congratulations, Dave in Grand Prairie. Apparently you're a music fan. Are you going to be able to go see the I Want My 80s tour coming up July 20th?
Me and my wife will have a blast.
Fantastic. And you know what I like? People started doing this, and I didn't even tell them to start doing it. You should do it, Dave. Take a selfie when you're there of you and the wife with like the stage
Okay.
in the background and send it to me, James at WBAP.com. Some people do that, some people don't, but I like it when they do. So there you go, Dave in Grand Prairie. Keith, you did a great job too, sir. I appreciate it. You just missed two of them, and it's two that I would have missed as well. In fact, when I did the list myself the first time listening to it, let's see, I got Celine Dion, Chicago, Wham, and I think that was it. I don't think I got anything else on that list. Keith gets 8 points. Well, all right. Why are you? You're not the guy that gives out points, Garrett. Do you want to be the point giver now? Okay. Well, you can be the assistant point giver. Because you're right. Maybe he does deserve points. Keith and Plano, you got 8 points on the board. Now, Dave and Grand Prairie, hang on. Do not hang up. Garrett's going to pick up the phone and get your information on the break, and we will email you the tickets. For the rest of us, livenation.com. All right, coming up next, we'll put a nice, beautiful bow on this with a parody from our friends at the Dan Bongino Show. And the next fake crisis is the same as the last fake crisis. You'll hear the montages next. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey, sports fans, especially basketball fans. James Parker here for the Prize Picks app. Now, as we're walking up into the All-Star break, there's a lot of All-Star related events that are on the Prize Picks app. They have would you like to guess less or more on the score that Mac McClung is going to get in the slam dunk competition? That's pretty cool. When they do the 3-point competition, well, you can go ahead and you can pick less or more on like Damian Lillard, 25 round 1 points. Will he get more or less? So even when they're not playing games, just when they're doing some of the All-Star game activities, how fun is that? Go check it out. Prize Picks app. You pick a lineup of 2 to 6 players, and it doesn't even have to be a game. But you get them correct, you can turn a little bit of money into a lot of money. In fact, you don't even have to get them all right. You can use the flex play. So if maybe one of your players doesn't live up to your pick, then you still win. So they made it pretty easy over there, and you can test it out with some money we're going to give you. Download the Prize Picks app, use promo code WBAP, and you get $50 in promo cash with your first $5 play. So have some extra fun with the All-Star game with the Prize Picks app. Use promo code WBAP to get the free $50 to play with. I'm James Parker, Prize Picks. Run your game. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. It's Valentine's Day. Guys, come on. This is your last chance. Last chance. Maybe you could write her a song if you haven't got a gift yet, or you're looking for something a little experiential, or not so worried about the dollars and cents. I heard a good song this week at a rally in D.C.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Tell me, which side are you on?
I'm not on the whatever side sings songs like this. Even if I was like of the Team Blue persuasion, this would be pushing me away. Like, I don't want to be in your party. This is your song?
No, we let's get within.
Whatever side you're on that, I'm not on that side. That's just no.
Oh, which side are you on?
You have all of Hollywood on your side. And some of them can sing and dance. Why don't you let them be the performative ones? If you put Scarlett Johansson up there and you made her sing, she can actually sing pretty well. I don't know if you ever heard her sing. Dude, I'd probably be Team Blue by Tuesday. But no. This?
He wants us to bow to him, but we want him.
We've gotten so much good audio just out of the last couple of weeks. Jim Verdi, the producer for the Dan Bongino Show, he comes on before us here on WBAP. For those of you who aren't all-day listeners, you should be. But this is a great mashup, and most of the sound bites he used for this little parody bit, we just got them in the last 3 weeks.
Which side are
Not that
you
one.
on?
That's hard to tell. That sounds like a parody, doesn't it?
In the tradition of the public broadcasting system's legendary children's television like Sesame Street
How to get to Sesame Street.
and Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood,
Beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine?
PBS brings you The Democrats.
We'll fight against George. We'll fight Elon Musk.
Your kids will love these grown children acting just like them with new little chants.
We won't rest. We won't rest.
But this show has an edge no children's show has ever had before.
I say Trump.
We have to Trump.
Donald Trump and Elon Musk.
PBS's new children's show, The Democrats.
Trump's coming for our unions. He wants us all to fail.
Airing now until Elon cuts our funding.
Absolutely beautiful. All right. If you've noticed some patterns in the reporting on the media, you're not the first one to notice. We're going to go back in time here, and just over the first 3 years of the Donald Trump presidency, there was a term that came up over and over and over: constitutional crisis, constitutional crisis. And so, who is that? I think I got this from Newsbusters, newsbusters.org. Fantastic website for stuff like this. They have the clips here, and here's some from 2017, and this is them in 2018, and this is them in 2019, and this is them in 2020. And they're so concerned about the Constitution, and it's a constitutional crisis. Everything Trump did in the first term.
We might be on the path to a constitutional crisis.
We will ask two experts about whether or not this is a constitutional crisis.
We've never faced quite the constitutional crisis that we do right now.
They are fomenting a constitutional crisis.
Yes. Are we staring down the barrel of a constitutional crisis?
This is an existential constitutional crisis.
A constitutional crisis, possibly.
The constitutional crisis alarm bells are ringing. But is anybody listening?
We're now like one subway stop from a real constitutional crisis.
We are in effect, a constitutional crisis.
Constitutional crisis. We're hearing it over and over again.
Nancy Pelosi's already said that Donald Trump is unfit for office. She said that he belongs in prison. She says that we're in a constitutional crisis. If that's not enough to begin an impeachment inquiry, then what on earth is?
Warnings of an impending constitutional crisis ripped through the nation's capital.
There are experts who are saying this is a constitutional crisis.
We are at a dangerous time in our history, a constitutional crisis that probably is the most severe moment since the Civil War.
All right. Now, from my point of view, and I'm going to go ahead and assume from your point of view, the Constitution intended for the government to be a certain size, and it has grown beyond that, way beyond that. A constitutional crisis. All you constitutional scholars worried about the letter of the law and the Constitution. What part of the Constitution gives the federal government power over education? Oh, that's right. There's not one. So the Department of Education, completely unconstitutional. However, For you and I who see that and you're like, well, that's not constitutional. We need to trim that back. The act to these people, the act of trimming back the government where it has overreached its authority in the Constitution back to its constitutional standard is a constitutional crisis. Well, not only is it inaccurate, it's terribly unoriginal because Newsbusters made another montage of just January and February of 2025. After not having a constitutional crisis for 4 years, not when they're blocking the free speech, not when they're doing vaccine mandates, not when they were preventing you from going to church or shutting down your schools or shutting down your business or preventing you from traveling on an airplane or public transit or whatever without showing your papers. They're all of a sudden concerned about the Constitution again in 2025. That's so weird.
New warnings of a constitutional crisis just weeks into Trump's second term.
The stage is set for a constitutional crisis. Could this signal the start of a constitutional crisis?
Legal experts say
Oh my
our country could
God.
be headed toward a constitutional crisis.
They're calling this a constitutional crisis.
This is a constitutional crisis.
I am unapologetic in suggesting we are in a constitutional crisis.
Y'all don't even like the Constitution. Where are y'all on the Second Amendment? Oh, that's right. There's this constitutional crisis doing there. You know, on one hand, it's so annoying, it's so trite, it's so hack. On the other hand, thank you, sweet Jesus, for making my enemies so dumb. All right, go out, have a good Valentine's Day weekend. I wish you best of luck, gentlemen out there. You know, if you can, I'm rooting for you. All right. Don't say anything dumb. Don't bring up her mom. Don't bring up her sister. Maybe you can have a good end to the night. Coming up next, Mark Levin. In the meantime, I'm going to go put up the podcast. You should go check it out wherever you're already listening to podcasts, whatever app you're on. Look for The James Show. Find me on social media. Follow me. Share my stuff out. If you see me tweet something or you see me post something on Facebook, every share, every like helps. And I'm super duper grateful for all of them. I'm James Parker. This has been The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.